Whispers from the void. Captain Elias Thorne had always believed that war was the only honest thing left in the world. Bullets didn't lie. Blood didn't negotiate. But the night the mountain swallowed his entire platoon, everything he thought he knew fractured like cheap glass under a boot heel. It was supposed to be a standard extraction in the Hindu Kush, routine recon in a valley the maps still called unexplored. Elias led 12 men, Delta operators, all of them. Hard men with call signs like Reaper, Ghost, and Saint. They moved like shadows at 0300 hours, NVGs painting the world in ghostly green. The objective was simple: locate and secure a high-value target rumored to be hiding in the ruins of an old Soviet outpost. Intel said the man had information on a Taliban supply route. No one mentioned the cave. The cave mouth appeared without warning, a black wound in the rock face that hadn't shown on any satellite pass. The air around it tasted metallic, like licking a battery. Sergeant Ruiz, the team's medic, joked it smelled like old pennies and bad decisions. No one laughed. Elias gave the order to proceed anyway. Rules of engagement were clear. Investigate anything anomalous. Inside, the tunnel narrowed until they had to turn sideways, rifles slung across chests. The walls weren't natural stone. They were carved with symbols none of the men recognized. Circles within circles, eyes without pupils, lines that seemed to writhe when the flashlight beams swept across them. Private Kowalski, the youngest, whispered, "Captain, these look like the drawings my grandma used to scare us with back in Poland. Old country shit. Demons." Elias told him to shut his mouth and keep moving, but the words stuck in his throat, because deep down he felt it too. A pressure behind the eyes, like someone was pressing thumbs into his skull from the inside. They found the outpost chamber after 20 minutes. No Taliban, no target, just a single iron chair bolted to the floor and, in the center of the room, a hole. Not a pit, a hole that went straight down into nothing. No bottom, no echo when they dropped a chemlight. Simply vanished. The air above it rippled like heat haze on asphalt, even though the temperature had dropped to near freezing. Then the whispering started. It wasn't voices exactly, more like thoughts that weren't theirs, sliding into their minds the way cold water slips under a door. Elias heard his dead wife, Sarah, calling his name the way she had the night the IED took her convoy in 2018. Ruiz heard his little sister begging him to come home from the hospital bed she died in when they were kids. Kowalski started crying because he swore he could smell his mother's burnt pancakes, the ones she made the morning she killed herself. Elias ordered them out. They never made it. The hole opened wider. Not physically, the edges stayed the same, but something inside it unfolded. Presence. It didn't have a shape at first, just pressure. Then it did. 12 shapes, one for each man. Mirrors. Perfect reflections wearing their uniforms, their faces, their scars. But the eyes were wrong. Black, wet, and smiling. The reflections raised their rifles in perfect unison and opened fire. The real men died screaming names that weren't theirs. Elias was the only one who survived. He didn't know how. One moment he was watching his own double put 3 rounds into Ruiz's chest. The next he was running, boots slipping on blood that smelled like copper and something sweeter, like rotting honey. He burst out of the cave into moonlight and kept running until his lungs bled. When the extraction chopper finally found him at dawn, he was curled against a boulder, M4 clutched to his chest like a child's toy, muttering the same sentence over and over. "They're still wearing our faces." The army called it combat fatigue. They gave him medals anyway, posthumous ones for the others, and shipped him home to Colorado with a pension and a warning not to talk about classified shit. Elias moved into the old cabin his grandfather had left him outside Telluride. No neighbors for miles. He liked the silence. First, The first night back, he woke to the sound of boots on the porch. Slow, deliberate. He grabbed the Beretta from under his pillow and cleared the house room by room. Nothing, but the boot prints outside, size 12, same as his, were pressed into the frost. They led from the tree line straight to his front door, then stopped. No exit prints. He told himself it was animals, or kids messing around. He drank whiskey until the shakes stopped and slept with every light on. 3 nights later, the whispering returned. It came through the walls like radio static tuned to a dead channel. Sarah's voice again, but closer. "Elias, why didn't you come with me?" He sat up in bed, heart jackhammering, and saw her standing at the foot of it. Not a ghost, a reflection. She wore the same desert camo she died in, but her face was his. Same jawline, same scar above the left eyebrow from a bar fight in Kabul. Same dead eyes smiling. He emptied the Beretta into her. The bullets tore through drywall and kept going. When the ringing stopped, she was still there, head tilted, studying him the way a scientist studies a rat in a maze. "You left us down there," she said with his own voice. "We waited." Then she stepped backward and melted into the mirror above the dresser. The glass rippled once, like pond water, and went still. Elias didn't sleep again for a week. He started researching. Not officially, army shrinks were already circling, but late-night forums, conspiracy boards, old books from his grandfather's footlocker. One thread caught his eye. Kush anomalies, Unit 47, 1986. Soviet records, declassified in pieces. A whole Spetsnaz detachment had vanished in the same valley. Only one survivor, a captain named Volkov, who later shot his family and then himself while screaming about the copies that remember. Elias found Volkov's last letter scanned online. Translated: "They wear our sins better than we do. They are patient. They are hungry. They are us, but without the weakness of guilt." He printed it, taped it to the wall beside every photo of his dead platoon. 12 faces, 12 empty chairs at the table he now set every night out of habit. The attacks escalated. One Tuesday, the power went out at 2:17 a.m. Elias lit a candle and waited. He heard the front door open even though he'd triple-bolted it. Footsteps crossed the living room. His own gait, the slight drag in the left knee from shrapnel. Then the kitchen light clicked on by itself. He moved down the hallway on bare feet, Beretta up, suppressor screwed on. His own reflection stood at the sink, washing blood from its hands. Real blood, thick and dark, swirling down the drain. It looked up, met his eyes in the mirror, and smiled with his mouth. "Ruiz begged at the end," it said conversationally. "Said he'd trade places if we let the others go." We laughed. "We don't trade. We collect." Elias fired 6 rounds into the mirror. Glass exploded. When the shards settled, the reflection was still there, untouched, now standing behind the broken frame like a portrait in a shattered frame. It raised a hand. Elias felt the same hand lift against his will. His own finger curled around the trigger and pressed it against his temple. The reflection whispered, "We can finish this tonight if you want, or you can come back and finish what we started." Elias fought, every muscle screaming. Sweat poured down his face. The barrel trembled but didn't move. Then, from somewhere deep in his chest, he heard another voice. Not the thing's, not Sarah's. His own. The real one. The one that had carried dying men out of Fallujah and promised their mothers he'd bring them home. "No!" The reflection flinched. Just a flicker. Elias lunged forward, grabbed the shard of mirror still clinging to the wall, and drove it into his own left palm. Pain, real, honest human pain, flashed through him like lightning. The reflection howled, a sound like tearing metal, and shattered into 1,000 black moths that poured out the window into the night. He bandaged the hand himself at 3 a.m., teeth clenched, whiskey burning the wound. The cut wouldn't stop bleeding for hours. When it finally did, the scar formed a perfect circle with lines inside it. The same symbol from the cave. He knew what came next. The dreams started the following night. Not nightmares, memories that weren't his. He saw the cave from the inside, saw the hole open like an eye, saw the thing that lived there peel itself out of the darkness, wearing the faces of every soldier who had ever died afraid. Fed on guilt, on unfinished business, on the parts of men that refused to die cleanly. And it was still hungry. Elias began preparing. He sold the cabin, bought an old Ford truck with cash, loaded it with everything the army had taught him to kill with. Suppressed rifles, grenades, thermite, a case of white phosphorus he wasn't supposed to have. He also bought books, old ones, cult texts, translations of Sumerian tablets. Anything that mentioned the devourer of echoes or the mirror that remembers. One line from a 14th century Persian manuscript kept him up at night. To kill the copy, you must first kill the original sin that gave it life. He drove east, not home, back to the war. The army had classified the valley after his team vanished, declared it off limits. He didn't care. He crossed into Afghanistan on foot through smugglers' passes, beard grown out, dressed like a local shepherd. The mountains didn't welcome him. They remembered. It took him 9 days to reach the cave. The entrance was exactly as he'd left it, black wound in the rock. But now there were fresh boot prints leading in. Size 12. His size. Dozens of them. All entering. None leaving. He rigged the entrance with claymores and tripwires anyway. Then he walked inside. The tunnel felt shorter this time, like it wanted him there. The symbols on the walls glowed faintly, pulsing in time with his heartbeat. He could hear breathing ahead, 12 sets of lungs, all breathing in perfect sync with his own. The chamber was waiting. The iron chair was still there, and in it sat Elias Thorne. Not a reflection. The man himself, older, hollowed out, eyes black and smiling. The thing had taken his face completely now, down to the new scar on his palm. "Hello, Captain," it said with his voice warm and tired. "Took you long enough." Elias raised the rifle. "I'm here to close the account." The copy laughed softly. "You still think this is about bullets?" Cute. It stood. Behind it, the hole yawned wider. From inside came the sound of 12 men screaming in 12 different languages, all begging for the same thing: to be allowed to die properly. "You left us," the copy said. "We waited. We learned. Every regret you carry, every promise you broke, we wear them now. We are the better soldiers. We don't feel fear. We don't hesitate. We just finish." Took one step forward. Elias fired. The round punched through the copy's chest and kept going into the darkness. The thing didn't fall. Kept walking. "You can't shoot guilt," it whispered. Elias dropped the rifle, pulled the thermite grenade from his vest. "Maybe not, but I can burn the evidence." He yanked the pin. The copy's smile faltered for the first time. "Wait!" Elias slammed the grenade into his own chest and hugged the thing that wore his face like a brother. White-hot fire bloomed between them. The copy screamed with 12 voices at once. Ruiz, Kowalski, Saint, Ghost, all of them. Elias screamed too, but his was human. Honest. The last honest thing he would ever do. The thermite burned through both of them, through the chair, through the floor. The hole shrieked, a sound like the universe tearing. Elias felt the presence try to pull away, but he held on, fingers melting into its shoulders, refusing to let go until the fire had eaten everything it could reach. The cave began to collapse. He was still holding the burning copy when the roof came down. The last thing he saw was his own face staring back at him from inside the flames. Eyes no longer black, but terrified. Human, the reflection finally cracking. Then darkness. They never found his body. The valley was declared a permanent no-go zone after seismic readings showed an underground collapse the size of a small town. The army listed Captain Elias Thorne as Kia, body unrecoverable. They gave him another medal. His family got a folded flag and a letter that didn't mention caves or copies or things that wore dead men's sins like winter coats. But sometimes, late at night, hikers in the Colorado Rockies report seeing a lone soldier standing on a ridge, staring east. He never approaches. He never speaks. If you get close enough, you can see the circular scar on his left palm glowing faintly, like embers that refuse to die. And if the wind is right, you can hear 12 men whispering the same sentence, over and over in perfect unison. We're still waiting. Some nights the whisper is closer. Some nights it sounds like it's coming from inside the listener's own chest. And on those nights, people wake up to find boot prints outside their windows, size 12, leading to the front door and stopping. No exit prints. Ever. Elias Thorne never came home. But something wearing the shape of his regret did. And it is still collecting. The mountains keep the rest.